All right, today we're tackling a mystery that's literally written into your DNA. We're going to go on a journey from a quiet 19th century garden all the way into the nucleus of your cells to crack the code of heredity.
I mean, it's a question we've all asked, right? You look in the mirror and you see this unique mix of your parents. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's like a living puzzle. So how does nature actually decide which pieces go where? Well, it's not just random chance. It's a story of some really elegant rules and just incredible science.
And you know where our story starts? Not in some fancy high-tech lab, but in a quiet monastery garden. And it starts with a monk named Gregor Mendel. Today, we call him the father of modern genetics, and it's all because his simple curiosity about, of all things, the humble pea plant was about to unlock some of the deepest secrets of life itself. So why pea plants? Well, Mendel's choice was seriously a stroke of genius. Think about it. They're super easy to grow, they produce a ton of seeds, and their life cycle is fast. That let him study generation after generation really quickly. But the real kicker, their traits were so simple and obvious. The plants were either tall or short. The flowers were either purple or white. There was no in between. He'd basically found the perfect natural laboratory. Okay, so he's got his perfect subject. Now Mendel's ready to figure out the rules. And his first brilliant move, he kept it simple. He decided to just focus on one single characteristic at a time.
Now, before we get into what he found, we need to get one key term down: the gene. The easiest way to think about it is like a single recipe in your body's giant cookbook. It's just a specific little piece of DNA that holds the instructions for one characteristic, like, say, the recipe for how tall a pea plant should be.
But just like with recipes, there can be variations, right? These different versions of a gene are called alleles. So for that height gene, you've got one allele that says be tall, we'll use a big T for that, and another allele that says be short or dwarf, and for that we'll use a little t. Mendel's method here was just beautifully simple. Here's what he did. First, he took a purebred tall plant and crossed it with a purebred dwarf plant. Then he just watched their offspring, what we call the F1 generation. After that, he let those F1 plants cross with themselves to create a second generation, the F2. And then he just counted. So simple, but so powerful. And this is where it gets interesting. His first result was a total surprise. Every single one of the new plants was tall. It was like the dwarf trait just completely vanished. And this gave him a huge insight. Some traits are dominant. That tall allele was completely hiding the effect of the dwarf allele, which, of course, he called recessive.
But here's where it gets really mind-blowing. When Mendel let those tall F1 plants breed, that vanished dwarf trait, it came back. It just reappeared in the next generation. And it wasn't random either. For every 3 tall plants, there was exactly 1 dwarf plant, a perfect, predictable 3-to-1 ratio. This wasn't magic. This was math.
Okay, so that predictable ratio points to a really important difference we need to talk about. There's the genotype, that's the genetic makeup on the inside, the code you can't see, like TT, TT, or TT. And then there's the phenotype. That's the physical trait you can see, like being tall or being short. And what this all means is that a tall plant could secretly be carrying that hidden dwarf gene. And all of this led Mendel to his first law, the law of segregation. It's actually pretty simple. For any trait, you've got 2 alleles, right? But you only pass one of them on to your kids. When your body makes reproductive cells, sperm or eggs, those 2 alleles split up. It's basically a 50-50 coin toss, which one any given offspring gets. All right, so Mendel totally cracked the code for one trait. But you know what the next logical question is? What happens when you track 2 traits at the same time? Like, what about seed shape and seed color? Well, that question led him to his next huge discovery. So this time, he crossed plants with 2 purebred traits, say round yellow seeds with constricted green seeds. And the results in that second generation were just wild. Not only did everything show up in this new predictable 9-to-3 to 3-to-1 ratio, but he started seeing brand new combinations. Things like round green seeds and constricted yellow seeds, combos that didn't even exist in the original parent plants. And that led him to his second law, the law of independent assortment. What that means basically is that inheriting one trait, like seed color, has 0 effect on inheriting another trait, like seed shape. They're totally independent.
It's like shuffling two separate decks of cards and then dealing one from each deck. What you get from one doesn't influence what you get from the other.
So think about this for a second. Mendel figured all of this out in a simple pea patch. But here's the amazing part. The exact same rules apply to us, to humans. So let's bring this home and see how these laws build the human blueprint. You see, our genetic instructions, our DNA, isn't just a jumbled mess inside ourselves. It's neatly packaged into these structures called chromosomes. Most of our cells have 46 of them, and they're arranged in 23 pairs. And where do they come from? Well, you get one full set of 23 from your mom and the other full set of 23 from your dad. Now, not all of these 23 pairs are the same. The first 22 pairs are called autosomes. These guys carry the genes for pretty much all your body's traits. We're talking everything from your blood type to your height. But that last pair, number 23, those are the sex chromosomes. And, you guessed it, they're the ones that determine your biological sex. So here's how it works. A female has two X chromosomes, XX. A male has one X and one Y, XY. Now, since a female only has X's to give, she can only pass on an X chromosome. That means it's the sperm, which can carry either an X or a Y, that ultimately determines the sex of the child. And that's where we get that classic 50-50 shot for a boy or a girl.
Now, the process of copying and separating all 46 of these chromosomes it's incredibly precise. But it's not perfect. Sometimes mistakes happen. So let's take a look at what happens when the code has a glitch.
Okay, one of these errors is called non-disjunction. So picture this intricate dance of cell division that makes sperm and eggs. During that dance, sometimes a pair of chromosomes just fails to separate properly. They stick together, and the result is a sperm or egg cell that has either one chromosome too many or one too few. And that one little error during cell division can have really profound effects. For example, an extra copy of chromosome 21 results in Down syndrome. A female who's born with just a single X chromosome has what's called Turner syndrome, and a male with an extra X chromosome has Klinefelter syndrome. All of these are the direct result of that one little glitch. The rules of inheritance get even more interesting when we talk about sex-linked traits. These are traits where the gene is located on the X chromosome. A classic example is colorblindness. Now think about it. Males only have one X chromosome, so they don't have a backup copy. If they get a recessive gene on that one X, well, that's the trait they're going to have. Females, on the other hand, have a second X chromosome that can carry a healthy dominant allele to mask it. And that's why these conditions are so much more common in males. So with all these rules, how do we actually track this stuff in real families? Well, geneticists use a really cool tool called a pedigree chart. It's basically a special kind of family tree that maps one specific trait through all the generations. By looking at it, scientists can become genetic detectives. They can figure out inheritance patterns, predict the odds of passing on a trait, and even determine if it's dominant or recessive, all just by looking at a family's history. You know, it's just amazing to think about. We went from a monk quietly counting peas in his garden all the way to understanding the intricate blueprint of human life. Mendel's principles, they revealed these hidden rules that connect every single one of us. He handed us the key to a story that's written in our very DNA. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What story do your genes tell?